Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Are we live? Can you hear me? Let's check that first.
It takes about 20 seconds.
I know. Thank you, Christmas.
Yeah.
It's too bad I didn't get a notification myself. Welcome, everybody. I'm just starting everything up so we have everything right in front of us.
You've got
yes, there we go.
Got ignition.
Okay. We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the official closing session of the Plural Positivity World Conference 2019. It was an honor to host this conference, and it is an honor to host this live Q&A with special guests from all over the world joining us. People from Australia at 6:20 a.m. at the moment are joining us in this live stream to say thank you and goodbye to all of our wonderful guests and viewers here at the conference. So to start this video off, I want to give the closing part, and then we will go to the Q&A at the end. So I want to give a thank you to all of you, our viewers, our watchers, our conference visitors, for joining us over the last 3 days. It was absolutely remarkable. Already 500 different people have seen this conference, which is absolutely amazing. We are blown away, actually, by how many people signed up to speak for us. Thank you so much. And by how many people showed up to actually watch this conference and the sessions that our presenters put together for you. And I'm going to take a breath. Whew, okay. So I want to thank our sponsors. Obviously, these folks have given outstanding support or financial contributions to make this conference the success that it has been and is and will be. This is Eclectic Tech LLC, including Liberated Life Coaching and the monetary sponsor of kinhost.org, with owner, admin, and adventurer, Reverend Chris Itterman, aka The Chris's. Power to the Plurals by Sarah and Clark, including Alternation on Facebook, their YouTube channel and website, powertotheplurals.com. And in support of the memory of Rhonda Bunkelman. Thank you so much. Also to our keynote speaker, Emma Sunshaw. And to all our other speakers and our amazing volunteers. Thank you so much. Without you, this conference would have not looked the same and would have not functioned as well as it has, even though we had some technical difficulties. For example, there were some troubles with the captions. We will fix this as soon as we can. We will take a day of rest, but after that, we will fix the captions on all the videos. And we have great, fantastic news. Because this conference was already such a fantastic success, the Chris's and I and other people on the team have decided that we will come back next year with the second edition, which is absolutely fantastic and also a problem because it's going to be hard to top this year and to do it better than what we've already done. But we are looking forward to seeing you again for the Plural Positivity World Conference 2020, part 2, to call it that. And this is at May 15, 16, and 17, 2020. You can sign up as a presenter from June 1, 2019 for this conference. So we are looking forward to receiving your submissions, and you can send those at refx.us/present. And that link will be put later in the comments down below. So let's have a check-in with our guests. Welcome, everyone. maybe we can do one by one and you guys can say hello and introduce yourself for the people who have missed your session. Maybe you can share a little bit what you spoke about. So let's start with the elephant journal system, because for them it is 6:20 in the morning. And so they want to go to bed. So let's start with them. I cannot unmute them. Will you, Chris? Okay.
I'm not sure where they went.
Oh, maybe their internet connection failed. Okay, let's start with Jim Bunkelman then. Can you unmute him?
Hi.
Yes. Hi, Jim. Thank you
Hi.
so much for joining the live stream and doing your session on plural support.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Yes, it's so nice for you to show up here and to join us. Did you for the conference, did you see any sessions yourself, or were you too busy?
I was really busy, so I just checked in on a few, and I'm planning on watching all of them a little bit later.
Nice.
Little by little.
Chris, can you fix the video that Jim becomes on the big screen when he speaks? That would be nice. But yeah, it's been really busy for everyone, I think, also with having multiple sessions at the same time. So we also still have stuff we have to watch. And we took some naps.
It was so comprehensive. There was so much. It was really amazing.
Yes. And your session was so great. People were so touched by your story. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I could do that.
Yeah. It was really inspiring, I think, to people.
Yeah, I mean, I try to offer examples that there's hope that it can be really good.
Yeah.
Even though it's supporting a multiple is sometimes a lot of work, but it's really worth it. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Thank you so much. It was really an honor to have such a great ally on our speaker team. Okay, maybe the garden sister wants to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm the garden system. It was a great pleasure being part of the conference, and I got to see several sessions, and I hope to see several more. There's a lot of great information. Sorry, somebody tried to call me. There's a lot of great information that was presented by a lot of wonderful presenters. It was just a huge success all around, in my opinion. I enjoyed every minute of it. I did this session on parenting as a plural. And we have 4 children of our own, plus we foster children as well. So we have a lot that goes on in our household.
Yes. I was personally very grateful you did the session on parenting, because I would first do that one and I already had so many sessions and I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. And then we got your message like, we can do a session on parenting. I was like, yes, that is so great. So thank you so much that you took that off my workload. And it was a great session. Thank you so much. It had such awesome tips and great feedback on that video. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. I think the elephant journal system is back. So maybe they want to introduce themselves. There we go. You should be on that.
Yes, I'm back. Yes, that was my internet. I don't know, what were we talking about? I missed the whole, what was going on?
You can introduce yourself and say which session you have done and what you have watched and what you enjoyed most.
Lovely, awesome. So Laura, hi everybody. I've got a lot of Emily, it's true. I did the 3Ds, the depersonalization, derealization, and denial. I did joke about adding the extra one as having 4Ds as a distraction in there, because that was a lot of the presentation. My favorite was definitely is dissociation maladaptive. I found that the most educational, and I just was like, oh my God, everyone has to see this. Like, it completely explains exactly where our community is sitting, and all the issues we are facing, miseducation or ill education, I should say, facing our whole community. I've been doing subtitles for, it feels like weeks. So I've been staring at these other presenters' faces in really slow motion. So it's really nice to see you actually like moving in like real time. I've just had an absolute ball. Yeah. Me and the Chris's, and I don't know, anyone who else wants to join in, we're all just gonna have a big cry after this is over. It's been a whole lot of work and just all worth it though. It's just been amazing. Thank you so much for having us on board. We are really honored.
Thank you so much. Oh, we literally have been in contact like 24/7 for the past 2 weeks or something. So yes, it's gonna be like a big goodbye and see you next year.
Like a band-aid, just right off.
Your session got awesome feedback. It was on the 4Ds. We're gonna update the title, right? To 4D, 3Ds right now. We're gonna make it the 4Ds. And that had great feedback, and people said you were very funny as well. So informational and funny at the same time. And I got to know you pretty well over the last 2 weeks. I think that is a very accurate description.
Sorry.
For not only presenting, but also moderating and also captioning and everything else you've done, Laura. Absolutely amazing, remarkable. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I couldn't have done it without you. You've put this all together, and Chris's, and it's just everybody. It's just been such a combined effort. It's thank you. Yeah, really.
Awesome. Kat, maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Am I still muted?
Yeah, no, we have you on the audio. Welcome in the live stream.
I see this.
Thank you so much, Kat, for doing your session on plural authenticity, multiplicity, authenticity. How did you call it? You had a perfect title for it.
Multiplicity, authenticity.
That was it. Awesome session. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us and for being here in the live stream.
I'm glad that I could make it. I actually had a bit of a issue that I had to deal with earlier, and I'm super surprised that I didn't switch beforehand. So we were kind of lucky. Got me.
Yeah. Okay. Did you watch some of the content of the conference, or were you busy?
I got a little bit. My favorite though was parenting. Parenting while multiple, because obviously I've got my own kids, and my oldest is a multiple as well. So it's a whole lot of fun with the two of us.
Right. Okay. Chris's, if you're here and able, you want to like say hello?
This would be one of those times when the dog is like outside being a problem, right? So hi everybody, we're the Chris's, and this has been, oh boy, definitely a roller coaster, and so far, oh goodness, it's definitely a toss-up for us. We take a long time to process things. The world panel last night blew our mind, and we still have to go back and rewatch B. Duddy's presentation because we were so busy juggling questions in the chat and, people on Messenger and Facebook. And it's just amazing that we were able to juggle all of that. We couldn't do all of that and listen at the same time, and give him the full attention that that presentation deserved. It's definitely a place we don't know enough. And so we want to learn more, and, not to ask people to be our personal educators. It's really great to have somebody dedicate their time to teaching more of us about their community. And that's really valuable. So that's one I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch, even though I was right there.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like that about a lot of it, you know, because it's going to take time to digest. But
yes. Thank you, Chris's, for everything you've done, for all your amazing sessions. Too many to name out of my head. Absolutely amazing work. Fantastic resources on the internet forever. Thank you so much for working so hard with me and the rest of the Plural Events team to make this a reality. It was an honor working with you and everyone else.
It's definitely our pleasure. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. Maybe V Daddy wants to say hello.
I'm B Duddy. I just did the tulpamancy session a couple minutes ago that Chris has just mentioned. I'm sorry to say I wasn't able to watch any of the other sessions just because I was volunteering literally all weekend. So
that is a fantastic reason. Luckily, all sessions will stay available on the internet as long as the internet is here.
Yes, absolutely. Or as long as YouTube is here, at least.
Yes, yes, for sure.
But yeah, there were definitely a couple of them that I was interested in and wanted to watch because, you know, things are applicable across different communities. That was one of the points I was trying to make.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for your session. I was very grateful for it because I think it's so great that we could include the tulpamancy community in the conference. So thank you so much for all your wisdom and knowledge that you shared with us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone here on the panel who has something nice or awesome or important to say to all the folks who are listening in? If so, feel free to unmute yourself. I thought everyone would go at the same time. No one is clicking. Oh, Elephant Journal System, all the way from Australia.
All right, I'll go first. A big thank you to everybody for jumping on in and watching some of the videos, getting a bit more education and just learning about what's going on in the community, spreading the word. It's essential that we band together as a community. And the only way that we're going to be able to move forward is by uniting and connecting with each other. So this has been an amazing step forward for us, groundbreaking stuff. And you've all been a part of it. It's not just the people making the videos, it's the people watching the videos, because then you go tell your friends something you've learned, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you know that's how we're going to see changes happen, and you know get better care happening and more better information, and try and get rid of the stigmatization that's out there. So you know it's not on us, it's on everybody. It's everybody's job to help. And you know I know we can all hide behind our computers at the moment, but maybe one day we'll be able to, you know, be able to live stream, or I don't know, show our faces in the world and not be scared that we'll be, you know, marginalized or put into a box.
Right.
Just because we say we have whatever in our plural umbrella we have. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you so much again. Go on, someone else pick on them.
So much. I'm trying to get Chris's to fix the camera, but I don't know where they are. Maybe they are.
Oh, I'm here.
Something with the dog.
No, I'm here. But I'm sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to highlight people or not. What we've got one question from the audience. It's, what's one thing you hope that people watching the conference take from it?
Okay, so since Kat is still really big on the screen, you want to answer? I'm so sorry for you.
No, she's not. It should be for you.
Oh, only for me, but not on the
I'm looking at
that is good
you and they see everybody. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can fix the view on the.
I'm so sorry. Maybe it's only on our back end, luckily. That is good to know. Okay, so Kat, the question was, what is one thing you hope that people watching the conference take away from it?
Well, other than being able to learn about being plural and not be afraid of us, that's a big one. For my session personally, I really hope it helps people, whether they're plural or not, to learn who they are as an individual and be able to be comfortable with who they are instead of being stuck in, in internal pain.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, garden system.
Hello. So one thing that I hope that people take away is that they learn something about themselves and that they feel better about themselves. I see a lot of negativity posted because it's scary to have this diagnosis. And I hope that people know that they're not alone and that they can do things, like parenting, like in my video, my presentation that I put out there, and that we can be successful despite the struggles that we have.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Jim.
I think I'd like people to take away, one is that you can be happy as a multiple, as a plural. And for singlets, that to believe it and not be afraid. And those are sort of the main things. I'd also like to thank you for the inclusiveness that you made in this whole conference, that people are not pushed out and kept out, that you can be, we have a wide enough umbrella to embrace everybody. And that's really great. I like that.
Thank you. Exactly. That was also very important to us. So we created the umbrella where everyone is welcome and there was no gatekeeping going on or anything like that. Yeah. So I'm glad we succeeded, in your opinion. Let me see. Laura, Elephant Journal System. The question was, what is one thing you hope that people watching the conference take away from it?
I kind of felt like I already answered it and that I wanted everybody to join together. That was my biggest thing. And that if we're a stronger voice together, that was the biggest thing.
Okay, awesome. B-Duddy, are you still here?
I am, yes.
Awesome.
I know you can't see me because of the no webcam thing, but I am. The one thing that I want people to take out of this, and I think others touched out of it, is that as different types of plurals, we're really not that different overall, that there are so many shared issues and shared struggles and things we can work together on and learn from each other. One of the big things that someone mentioned earlier was, relating with singlets, relating with the public on how we talk about ourselves, and that's really a thing that everyone deals with. And so that and so many other issues are things that we can really work together on and learn from each other on.
Yes, thank you so much. I agree. More Alike Than Different is also a great book by Margot Rivera, by the way. So yes, I agree. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing and for being part of this conference. Do any of you have suggestions or resources? Did I let everyone answer? I did, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. Do any of you have suggestions or resources for plurals to give to the general public to educate them about plurality, or to give to professionals or government officials, like a rough letter, etc.? Well, my personal answer is that I hope that the ISSGD will revise their guidelines finally. they are outdated by a decade now. So we sincerely hope that this conference, it's called a counter conference. It's not a protest against the ISSTD, but it is to let our voices be heard, that the guidelines need to be updated. And when that happens, we have a great resource, hopefully, to send out. I guess there are various websites with fantastic information by many of our speakers. So I don't feel it's fair to point anything out by name, maybe, but we could provide a list with all links of all our speakers at the end somewhere. Do you have input, Chris, on this? Should everyone in the call give their website?
Well, I think we have various stuff. And I'm certainly happy to put it under the plural movement part of kinhost.org too, to start making a resource list for plurality in general under the plural movement section of the website.
Right.
Yeah, but the other thing was things like letters for government officials. I have a manifesto on there, which might be interesting, and we read it during one of the sessions. I think it was during the plural activism and selves advocacy session. So it was right towards the end, and I read the plural manifesto, which is on the same website. So it's on kinhost.org under the plural movement tab.
Awesome.
So that's another thing that could be reworked into something to give to official people. Next person, anybody else?
Yes, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to add something to the question.
One of the things that I talked with Jazz of our Gaia system a lot, and we've about educating the public, and what we decided is that we really need a will and grace for plurals. Something that will just make people very comfortable with plurals, so they know them. Will and grace was a big breakthrough, and I think that we need something like that for plurals.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have it up yet, but I can update my website with information. I do employer coaching for multiplicity in the workplace. So I can have some general information on my website too.
Awesome, thank you so much.
It's not mine by any means, but I know that there were some systems at Google that recently released a website they called the Plurality Playbook, largely for a resource for employers. I think I could post the link in the chat, or if that doesn't work, then just look up Plurality Playbook.
It's on pluralpride.com/playbook.
Yes, and that's a great resource indeed. They work for Google. It's absolutely awesome that they released it, and we are so grateful that they did. So that's definitely a great place to check it out. And we can put that link later in the description of the video as well to make it easy for everyone to find. So we have some questions that were sent to us up front by the community. So let's have a look at those.
Just before you miss me.
Just so sorry.
I did have one thing. No, you're right. I sent an article, but there's also a couple of articles that I attached to my presentation. But in relation to educating like your own community, books are amazing. So I read like even mood disorder stuff, riding the roller coaster to Stop Walking on Eggshells, and I know they're BPD books, but like there's some amazing books. The Haunted Self, what's that? Healing the Fragmented Self, which is really kind of more for psychs to read and a little bit triggering. But there's some really good books out there if you want to educate yourself about it, so that way then you can pass that information on, because you don't want to be to anyone in a government sense and not know what you're talking about, and just be like, I have voices in my head and and you should, you know, give me money for that or fund us, because you want to be able to say all the issues we face and what the statistics are, and be well informed yourself. And the more that you can learn about the disorder that you, or whatever you're struggling with, the more you can empower yourself. And so that would be what I would want you to take away. Thanks. Next question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. These are very good points. Also, this conference, you can send it to people. It's going to be available forever. Okay, can authors split intentionally? And if so, can they decide on the identity of the new person? So can you develop new authors intentionally? And if so, can the new author decide on their own identity? Or can you decide on the identity for that author? This is a very deep question.
That sounds like a B-Duddy question.
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for DID systems, certainly. I know that they have issues and things going on that are different from what most tulpa systems face, but I would certainly think that an alter or anyone else could create a tulpa just in the same way as I did and singlets did and tulpa systems do. And just like the things I talked about during my presentation, that the person they could create, I think they would probably be considered a tulpa under the common definition, but they could identify how they wanted to. They could try to predetermine some parts of their identity or just leave it up to them in the same way that typically happens in the tulpa community, if that makes any sense.
Yes, thank you so much. What we see in the DID community, or what I personally see in the DID community where I hang out, is that it's mostly polyfragmented. So larger systems were able to create alters on purpose, I guess, to call it that. And then you can, I guess, influence maybe the role of the alter or like part of their personality, but I don't think you can put it in stone. I think you always hope for the best. I don't think everyone with the ID can, though, because like some people can't even change things in their inner world. So maybe they could if they like practice a lot, like tulpamancers do. But if they don't, then I don't think for everyone it's as easy to just create a new alter like that.
Actually, I have a little bit to add to that.
Sure.
To that answer. There are two types, at least, of polyfragmented systems that assemble people on the fly, if you will. There's the ad hoc and the modular system, which was that Cluft? I forget who it was that identified them. That's on that nursing site with that list of all the different types of subtypes of DID. So there's two different types of polyfragmented. The modular is where it happens on its own, I think. And then there's the ad hoc, which somebody's creating. I don't know, one or the other. But basically you have fragments, which are like tiny, tiny parts of a system, and they come together like Legos to create different people that handle different situations. The other part of the question about identity, like choosing their identity, I think identity is something that somebody chooses for themselves. So no, I don't think so. Because if they have the ability to, I think, therefore I am at any point, then they get the choice to choose their own identity. There you go.
Thank you so much. It was actually drawn in 1986. I looked that up.
I also add to it, just on the question, that those with DID and OSDD who are traumatic systems can, in fact, like make more alters if there are extra traumas in which your alters cannot deal with. So it's not to say that you could have control over who they become or what they become, but yes, more alters can appear. and they would definitely serve a purpose in that they would be helping you in that traumatic event.
Yes. We say that if there is a lack in the system, that then if a new altar is created, I think that altar fills that lack, right? That need that it's still there, if that makes sense. So that's what I guess I mean by say they can choose the direction, because I assumed that they would create the altar that they need and not just a random, I don't know, someone who likes to dance on Friday night or whatever. Okay. The second question we got in beforehand is, what are our next step as a community? We've accomplished this, but now what? Is there anyone on the panel who wants to answer this question?
I have a question. What was the question?
What are our next steps as a community? We've accomplished this, but now what? No? Okay.
What's next?
I think that the next step would, be to really continue to raise the awareness. People don't know anything about what we're going through. If you try to talk to somebody, they look at you cross-eyed and they're like, what are you talking about? And I think that just like many of the other disorders that are, you have the ribbons for this and the ribbons for that, that people just need to be aware of what this is. And once they have a grasp of what this is, then I think we can move forward from there.
Yes, thank you. I agree. March 5th is DID Awareness Day, and we reached 128,000 people this year on March 5th. So that was absolutely fantastic. It grows bigger every year. So that's absolutely a great way to spread that awareness. But I definitely hope with you that it continues throughout the year. And that more and more people start to participate. Also, allies like Jim, it's so great that they are, willing and able to help us out with this kind of thing.
My magazine will be showcasing some information and awareness in May, our May issue, on DID and plurality, or multiplicity. It's part of our way of saying we see you, and we're here for you. We're here to support you with all sorts of awarenesses.
Thanks. Awesome.
I suppose the next step forward in our community is that we are taking care of ourselves first, and then we can move forward to connect with others, and then we can move forward to educate others. Because once we have that support, then we are able to move forward and be able to tell people about what it's like, and that we're not living in denial, that unfortunately, there's a lot of us that just hide the fact that, that we're DID or whatever it may be, in order to keep our jobs for financial security. But also, you don't want to disappoint your parents who might take on that blame. So there's a whole lot of factors that keep us quiet and keep us in the closet. And if we can get more people talking about it, we can get more people out of the closet and, make our own films that aren't, crazed people doing things in the name of DID.
I love your way of thinking and like how big you think, like, let's take over Hollywood and make our own movies.
Also, we're working on a musical for next year, so Any composers, just let us know. That'd be great.
You know how they have Bollywood and stuff like that? We're going to have Pluralwood.
Pluralwood.
Oh my God, yes. I can imagine can do it.
Yeah, we often have discussions in the plural community about people should make a cartoon about a plural system or a drama or just like a slice of life thing. So that would be something really fun to see, no matter what part of the community it's about.
Yes, Avantgarde did a presentation on art, and they have a comic on plurality, actually. So there's a link in that description of their art video if you want to check that out. We talked with the team before how we could top this conference because it's so good. And so that's how we came up with the idea of we should do a musical to start the thing off next year. So I can't hear you, Elephant System.
Oh, sorry, trapeze artists. We need trapeze artists.
An elephant.
I know a bunch of trapeze artists.
See?
I also love DID, the musical. I think that's great. But we need more public education. That's really a big thing. And I also think education in universities too, because of what's taught in the universities now is just so outdated. And so much comes from that. I've talked to people when I've mentioned multiplicity, and they've said, "Oh yeah, I had a class in that, or my professor told me that's very rare. You just don't see it." And I just had to say, "Oh yeah, well, it's not."
Yeah, not really. 229 million systems in the world, so.
If it were rare, we wouldn't have such a hard time having 3 specialists in my town, all of which full.
Right? Yeah, there are not that many specialists, but those who are there are all booked and full. And yeah, absolutely. Yep. Okay. If anyone wants to add, go ahead. Else, I'm going to go to the next question that was sent in. In your opinion, is it more advantageous for a system to have an inner world? How can inner worlds be better utilized in therapy for DID or OSDD? Well, I did a whole session on inner worlds and how to upgrade them with self-hypnosis. So yes, I do think inner worlds can be definitely beneficial and therapeutic to folks with DID. And folks without DID also can use inner worlds or self-hypnosis for that matter. So great tools all around for everyone. Yes, I think it can bring a lot of community inside, connection inside. You can build like a safe inner world family, right? Like not the kind of family that we don't like, but the kind of family we wish we had. You can build it inside. And so, yeah, I think inner worlds are fantastic for that. Anyone else wants to answer that?
I very much agree with having inner worlds. It was actually brought to my attention with my first therapist that it's not needed for mine, but doing it actually brought us all together faster than having to work through trying to figure out who is saying what at this point. And since having created this inner world, and I do believe I mentioned it in my video, we do a nightly check-in just to see how everyone's doing, if there's anything that throughout the day needs to still be addressed, and it makes for communication so much easier as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to jump in. I also have the mapping presentation, which talks about not only the mapping process, bringing everybody closer together, but also how one type of map, I go through like 10 different types, but at least one, maybe more than one, involves the internal landscape maps. So you can actually map your inner world and make adjustments to it in terms of internal landscaping is what we call it in the Otherkin host community. We used to call it internal landscaping or the internal landscape. We call it inner world here in the DID community, but it's the same thing, obviously. And how you can use your map to plan or make changes to your inner world. So that's in my mapping presentation too.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else?
Hi, me again. So I'm pretty like beginner level on this stuff. But basically I didn't really have an inner world, and it was kind of like everyone was just like walking around in the dark and bumping into each other, and it was like, bah, messy. So, but like the littles then like got like a Polly Pocket, and they've made their own castle back there. So, but then, I found that expanding on that and checking out how to the plurals there, eh? Not while they're doing that though. They did the inner world, build your inner world boardroom amazingness thing, and that's been very helpful. Though it's kind of like putting leads on slugs and trying to pull them through. It's not working very well too. Like everybody, guys, running around the room. Just so it's a work in progress. We'd still like to do some more construction. Build some more safe spaces. How has it been an advantage? Is that I do have a place for my altars to go dormant, the cave. So that has been an absolute safe harbor for me. If I didn't have that, I don't know what would happen. And once I know that they're in the cave, it's like, is it cool? They're in the cave, like just leave them while they're in the cave. But if I don't know where they are, it's kind of that, should I go find them? Like, is it like, should I be telling this person about this? Like, or the altar, like, the information sharing becomes, essential. They will come out to hear something if they should hear it, basically. And that's been utilized in the boardroom. And like, yeah, you're right. I write basic like psych appointment Tuesday this time, and you're like, you put that on the whiteboard, and like everyone has to see that. That's the important one. Like, so that's been really, really important, especially when you come out and you haven't been out for 2 months, and you're like, what's going on with life? You check the boardroom, and you're like, okay, at least I have one thing there. Gotcha. So that's all I have to say to that, because I'm talking again. Whoa, lots of talking.
Thank you so much for sharing. So we have another question from the chat, or does anyone want to answer in the panel that hasn't answered yet?
Yeah, I just want to chime in for a bit. Obviously, most Tulpa systems don't have the same kind of problems with sharing information and things like that. But we and a lot of others still think that inner worlds, or we generally call them wonderlands, it's sort of a long story, but that they can be useful for a couple of reasons. Basically, just as an internal place where you and Tulpas can sort of be equal. You can more easily experience your own forms that you identify with. You can do sort of fun things together that you can't really do because normally in the real world, because you share a body.
Right.
Just different fun and useful and enjoyable things you can do together there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We have another question that came in from the chat. Is there a plan for you all to have more community connection work between now and the next conference? I hope we keep sharing resources and supporting each other. Also related, if we want to join in and help out, is there a way for us to do so? Yes, you can sign up to present at refx.us/present. That's a great way, right? By presenting, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your personal experience, super important. We learn so much from all these folks here. Most of them are plural. So, maybe you have something from your own experience that you can share that is very valuable to other people who can then implement it in their own lives. So that's one way to help out. We definitely plan to keep working on community and building bridges between the different communities, not just different DID or plural communities, sorry, not just the different plural communities, but also towards the clinical community and what they are doing, where they are going with their work and research. We hope to be part of that as well. Not we, but like all of us at Plural events, or like everyone who was part of this conference, even, I guess, everyone that was part of the activist and advocacy meeting in Orlando, every one of us, all those people are hoping for that, to keep building bridges between the various communities. Anyone else from the panel?
I mentioned in the chat that there's the Plural Movement section of the Kinos.org site. I also gave out Plural events and my own Twitter handles and said, follow us, because if there's any news, we'll be putting it out there. And we're going to be looking for venues and ways and places that we can all get together. We're doing this conference online because that makes it really cheap and easy for everyone. And that means it's more inclusive. And because it'll be up forever, it means that, you know, there's no barrier of, oh, I couldn't get that week off for work or whatever, you know, that's my trauma week. That it just makes it so much more inclusive and powerful that way. However, we will be meeting in person, not necessarily with everybody here at the conference, but there will be, I'll get the dates. We are planning to have a tiny corner of the Philly Trans Wellness Conference, which is in Philadelphia from July 25th to 27th. So all of the things you miss about getting to actually talk in person, hugging people, or being in the physical presence of people, we're going to get that at Philly Trans. Why? Because Philly Trans Wellness Conference has no entrance fee. So there's such a huge overlap between the plural and trans community. And because it's such a huge conference, there's about 7,000 people in attendance. They're going to notice that there's more plurals, but they're not really going to notice that there's more plurals, like we didn't take over completely. No matter how many of us show up, I don't think we're going to take over that conference completely. So do expect to see some movement trying to get plurals together. I plan to get a table at Philly Trans. And so there'll be a plural events table. And so if you come to Philly Trans, come and seek us out at the conference, whether you were going to go there anyway because you're trans, or whether you just want to meet a whole bunch of plurals. Even if you don't identify as trans, there's just so many people there and so much diversity there that I'm sure you'll feel okay being there, except maybe being overwhelmed by it just being so big. But it wasn't crowded. It's in a very large convention center, so it wasn't really crowded. And there's going to be probably, I mean, we're waiting for approvals on sessions and stuff, but there will probably be another plural caucus there. We had one the last 2 years, I think, at Philly Trans. Last year's caucus, we had 40 people show up to the caucus. So we're expecting, hopefully, to have more as we get the word out that there will be plurals there. We will be loud and proud and under our own banner within the larger trans umbrella. Will be kind of this overlapping Venn diagram umbrella next to the trans umbrella, and hopefully that helps everybody find us and, you know, be in the same physical space.
Yes, we are meeting at CasaFest in the first week of August. Sorry, August is called in English. First week of August, right here in the Netherlands at CasaFest. We're doing a meetup for plurals as well. So if you're from Europe or from the Netherlands, that's a great place to meet with other people in your life as well. And next year we have the Infinite Mind Healing Together conference as well, that some of us might join again and others might not. So that's also a place. And next week there is a conference on RA somewhere. Oh, I will have to look that up. No, I can find that in a second. If I can find it back, I will put it in the link down below. Next question is, because I don't think anyone else wanted to answer, right? Nope. Okay. Next question is.
Yeah, my plan was just to like put you in a big box and send you to Australia. Connection.
That would be great if that could happen, but I don't think I fit in a box, so sorry.
No.
Need many boxes to fit me in. Okay, can authors intentionally, consciously create amnesia barriers between themselves and others? What could be the benefits of doing so, if any?
Hugely. I'll go first if you want. Definitely. So if it's something traumatic happening, completely block it out. Something happened maybe a month ago, nobody knew it but one. And then when the host came back, it was kind of like we unraveled a little bit, but it was still like, don't tell the others. I don't want them to know. So yeah, block it out, because you don't want everybody to know, because it's too much for the system. That's the whole, not the whole reason, but it is main reason that we have alters, is to be able to deal with things and put them in little boxes, and then, okay, I'm going to open that box for a little while and then I'll put that one away. All right, other box. So definitely. Big benefits that you're not completely like all the time. Unless you've got like mood disorders, you know, it's just me. Bye.
Thank you so much for sharing, Laura. I agree. I do think it's mostly subconsciously that it happens, especially from the past, from the trauma. I really think that's a subconscious thing, and that it is not as easily broken, to use that word, as when something happened last week and you block that off. But yes, I think the same. Anyone else wants to give an answer to this question?
Yeah, I get asked a bunch of times, you know, that when Rhonda and I were being intimate, what about the kids? You know, and I tell them the kids are blocked. The kids are blocked. So it's not just even traumatic things. It's some normal everyday things that you know, the kids were blocked, the littles were blocked out from that system, and it happened in other times too. But it is definitely happens.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Hi. So I kind of agree with what the others are saying. And one of the things that my therapist and I worked on together was, you know, being able to block some things from some of the younger parts, or, you know, really take some heavy things and put them away, in a sense, so that we could function in everyday life. So like in our inner world, we have like this big vault. And so we take whatever it is that needs to be blocked, and we put it inside there, and we lock it away for another time when we can deal with it. Usually in therapy, you know, we'll take it back out and then deal with it. But until then, it's locked away is the best way to describe it.
Thank you for sharing.
Ours is a library that we do this with. The memories or the situations that are a little too much for our littles or for certain members have locks on them. The books have locks. It's kind of funky, but that's how we take care of things. And then as we need to go through them, so that we're processing those that need to process it the most, or were the ones that experienced it, we would come together and open the books together, so that we are able to process together, and we're there for each other and we're supporting each other.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, the next question is, have you considered making a guide section on a purely plural website where people can submit guides? Do you recommend creating your inner world in connection with the outer world, or rather disconnecting from the outer world to keep everything as safe as possible? Well, this is so many questions in one. I'm going to split them up. Sorry. Have you considered making a guide section on purely plural websites where people can submit guides? No, we have not considered this. We might consider that off camera together with the team. I know multiple people who spoke at the conference have, you know, multiple sections with their own guides. So maybe we can make something to put them all together if people are interested in that. or like create a file where we put all the links to that. The second question is for everyone on the panel. Do you recommend creating your inner world in connection with the outer world, or rather disconnecting from the outer world to keep everything as safe as possible? My personal answer is that I would change it from the outer world, so when you are super dissociated, you still realize what is inside and outside. Anyone else?
I keep them separate. I think that the inner world is a safe place, and that I need to make the outside world a safe space. I can't just seclude myself to the inner world being the only safe place. Otherwise, everything becomes agoraphobic, and I will never want to leave or move at all.
I think I reread the question along with the next question because I think they both came in together. So it was, do you recommend creating your inner world in connection with the outer world, or rather disconnecting from the outer world to keep everything as safe as possible? And then, is it better to base it off reality to make things make sense, or fantasy to make it as own world as possible? So is it better to have a outer world that's a inner world that's a reflection of the outer world, or to have something that's completely fantastical or obviously different than the external world, to keep the two logically separated from each other? I guess it would depend on the system and how they perceive things. For some systems, the inner world is more real to them than the outer world, or external world as we call it. So there's like this boundary between the two, and we talk about this in work on As Inside, So Outside, and vice versa. There's a boundary between the two, which generally is somewhere around your body, where your body begins and ends. We pull things from the outside world as inspiration for the inside world, and it can be from fiction and it can be from reality. So our first inner world was an apartment, for example, because that was our world when we were growing up as a kid, and we needed a safe apartment, so we made it an apartment. So I think the question is, should it be a reflection of the outer world? I think sometimes we build an inner world and we don't even know we're doing it. Like, it's done on a subconscious level, and so it is what it is. But then we can fabricate it into whatever we want. If you're building one on purpose, you can make it whatever you'd like. So if you know you're going to have a hard time telling the internal world apart from the external world, you may want to make the sun blue, or do something that makes it obvious when you're in one world or the other, if you're doing it on purpose. But if you're not doing it on purpose, you're starting out with whatever's there, and then you're doing landscaping from there and making adjustments to it and changes to it to make it safer, to make it more comfortable, to create safe spaces and stuff. You're doing that on purpose at that point. So you're starting with what you have, or you're starting completely from scratch. I hope that helps.
Yes, that helps. Thank you. Garden system is on the go and still in the stream. How awesome is that? Dedication.
I kind of like the idea of modifying the outside world to match the inside world. I just like that idea.
That's part of our speech in April. If anybody's in New York State and wants to come and see my speech.
Nice. The next question that came in is, what is the difference between blending and integrating? Can those that have integrated unintegrate? If this can happen, do the two initial people that integrated unintegrate back to their original state? That's a very good question. I think it very much depends on the system, how the integration was set up. If it was an event or a natural process. We loved what Katie Steele said. She said integration is never an event, it's a journey, and it's never finished. Not just for those with DID or who are plural, but for everyone in the world, right? Because Jim was a singleton. He was someone else 10 years ago than he is today, right? So the singleton people also integrate on a daily basis. And so we really like that explanation by Katie Steele. Does anyone wants to add something as an answer to this question?
I suppose you really have to ask somebody who has been integrated and then has unintegrated. But from what I have read, yes, they do go back to their initial alters, but they are quite traumatized from the whole experience. And the initial part of the question was, what's the difference between blending and integrating? Blending, I find to be more temporary. So you can be co-conscious, and sometimes you get so co-conscious that you're not quite sure who's saying what now, because they're kind of thinking in the same mind. And that's kind of like what you want, because you're thinking one-minded, and that's a very healthy kind of system. That's kind of what you're looking for. But integrating is, yes, a process, and it definitely can be much more permanent. It's much more long-term, but also it is by your own choice. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. Blending, for blending, those who are familiar with transformers, and transformers, you have the combiners, and those are multiple bots coming together, combining into one. And that's how we see merging in our system. And our protectors make use of this, and they become epically powerful. So that's a great metaphor for our system. We are absolutely transformer lovers. Anyone else wanted to?
So you don't want to add Captain Planet in there or something?
Less familiar with that, unfortunately, for everyone.
Oh, you're missing out. Google that.
Yeah, I have such a beef with the industry that I did a whole podcast episode on it, on the word integration in the first place. So I'm taking the word in this case to mean a complete merge, a fusion, or a unification between at least two or more members of the system. But the other version of, and I think that's how it was interpreted by the panel, but I think the other version of integration is co-consciousness. Basically, it's the sharing of the disparate pieces of information rather than the blending together of the people. So it can be sensory integration, it can be memory integration, and so on. So the difference between blending would be co-consciousness, where it was described before, two or more people are not just co-conscious, like you're leaning over each other's shoulders in the car, or somebody's in the driver's seat and somebody's in the passenger seat, in the front seat of the car, but where you start like holding the wheel together and stuff like that. And integration is just everybody's sharing more information, if that makes sense, or getting more into the body, and hooking in the controls better. That's the other definition of integration, which is not the scary kind of integration. That means unification. There we go.
Yes, I was clued in 1993, so a lot of time has passed since. And I think and I hope that the clinical perspective also changed on this. In the ISSTD guidelines, we read that it's a confusing term. They do quote clued, in my opinion, unfortunately. And I asked actually at the conference last week, 2 weeks ago, here in the Netherlands, with the creators of the theory of structural dissociation, Onno van der Hart, Suzette de Boon, and Katie Steele, if there was any research into functional multiplicity, and they said no. And Onno van der Hart even said that he believes that if people choose not to do that final fusion merge phase, that people stay more vulnerable. And I asked him what he based that on, if that was based on research, it was based on his own clinical observation. And so for me, from my non-clinical observation, but seeing many people in the groups, they explained that they might have experienced integration, or being integrated as one, and then later they fall apart again. And they are very angry and upset and hurt and damaged, to use that word. Sorry, that is an ugly word in English. by this whole process, right? By what happened. And so they don't go back to that therapist. They come to our groups online and they share online, like, this happened to me. What do I do now? How do I get my alters back? I miss everyone. Or, you know, some people came back, where's the rest? It's a mess sometimes. And then it's up to us, the community, to fix it with these people, because they don't want to go back to the clinical world. And it's a very painful thing to see. And unless they're very angry or they have a very angry part, that part might go back to the therapist to let them know, like, hey, dude, that was not cool. But most of the times they won't go back because they don't have that voice, right? Or they might have it on the internet, but not, they don't have the, you know, I don't know what the correct word is, but they can do it face to face with the therapist, because often we see our therapist as a person with authority. And so it's very hard to speak up to that after, for most people, a life of abuse. Okay, the next question is, how does it happen that for one alter, they evolve into an age slider alter, and you don't just create a separate one to have all the needs met? Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I think you answered your own question, actually, because all that you say, that meets all the needs in the system, right? And if you have an age slider, that age slider can meet all those needs of all those ages, instead of creating, I don't know, 18 alters for every year of your childhood. So I think that answers the question actually in itself. If someone wants to add, go ahead.
I have one age slider in my system, and it kind of just happened. And it was like, I didn't realize, like, I would get asked how old am I, and I'd say 21. But that alter is normally 11 now, and so it was the exact same personalities and the same feelings that I had in my body, being that person. Like, it wasn't like the bodily experience was the same, but I felt like, so it's Emily, her name is Emily, and she's 11, and she's like manic as all hell, and then she can slide up to 23, and so she suddenly becomes this person who's like, let's go to university and let's like take on life. And it's like exactly how you are in your early 20s, like, I'm going to conquer the world. I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's kind of that more independent feeling. You don't feel like you've got a parent that's on you all the time. It's just that, yeah, it's just an adaptation that happens. It was very organic. It wasn't as though you can make them. Like, they just come that way sometimes. Yeah. Thank
you for sharing.
I have another opinion. And I'm not saying that this is always true, but I think sometimes what we believe is an age slider, and it's a little dicey saying it, but sometimes what we think is an age slider ends up being a subsystem. Kind of like when you have a bunch of kids who are standing on each other's shoulders and they put on a long coat and pretend to be one person. So you end up being a plural within a plural. You have somebody inside who's not obviously plural, but is, and you're only seeing within the system, you're seeing one person, one body, but inside of that, there are people. And so sometimes they will present as 11, sometimes as 2, sometimes as 20, because that's the subsystem, is a bunch of disparate, separate people covered over either by a gatekeeper, which would be like a host for the subsystem, or by a mask, which is, I'm sorry, it's called a veil for a subsystem, at least from the communities I come from, is a subsystem veil, which is like a mask for the whole system. So they're essentially hiding within your system, a whole other system.
Thank you for sharing. The next question we got in is, what is the best word for an alter being created after trauma? Do we call it emerging or being created or born? What is the most accurate? Personally, I think either created or evolved, but feel free to pitch in Dear other speakers. I think it, like, I asked this question in alternation actually the other day, like, it was a bit different, but it was another question about terminology, like what is your preferred term for alter or part or whatever. Not that many people actually answer. It almost seemed like people didn't care that much. They just want to use their individual terms, which is, you know, in my opinion, more than fair enough. But I'm glad that this question is asked instead of, you know, my alter split off, because that is very outdated, and we don't really see it that way anymore with structural dissociation coming out, and also with the work from Brown. If you want to pitch in, go ahead.
I just say it's a new alter. I've got a new alter's fronted. It's poof, they're there. Like they don't. It's not as though, yeah. I don't say emerged. I don't say they're born. They're just they as an alter does, front. They just front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else who want to pitch in?
I really just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. We say, sometimes we say created, but for the most part, it's more of they've become conscious with us. Like they're just kind of lost somewhere in there. Because I don't know if I really create them now, but I believe that they've been there the whole time. So they're just conscious with us now. That's how we look at it.
Thank you for sharing. Garden System, go ahead.
So for us, when we had a new part show up, that's basically how we described it to our therapist. Somebody new showed up today. Somebody new spoke to me today. We didn't really refer to them as being created or born or anything like that. They were just there. They weren't there before, and they're there now. And that's pretty much how we see it, is somebody new came today.
Thank you for sharing. So the last question that we received before this conference started was, I have a friend in another system. She's a 4-year-old alter that gets stuck out. Explain, please, and how to unstick. So if we can explain how alters get stuck in a friend and how they can unstick.
Okay. I can field this one, I guess. That's an anxiety issue usually. It's a panic reaction when we get stuck in front. So the usual de-escalation of panic applies, you know, and it's funny because it's one of those catch-22s. When you get stuck front because of anxiety, then you get more anxiety because you're stuck front. And it can escalate, you know, and then you just really can't switch anymore. So generally relaxing is one. The other one I find really helpful is music. And if you're not a system that does music, you'll have some other triggers that are positive triggers that help somebody else front. You know, getting out some favorite things, smelling some favorite, you know, like perfume or essential oil that somebody else really likes, or looking at a color that's their favorite color. But for us, we have a playlist. So we have specific songs that are kind of the ballad songs or the anthems of particular people in here that we can play to help them front so that we can get unstuck. Or even just play for the person that's stuck front so that they get more, they de-escalate their anxiety so that they feel more comfortable. And once they're more comfortable, somebody else can slide in.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I would say with a little, I would practice with one of the adults to switch back in and out, and to really get that process going well and smooth when there is no crisis, and then hopefully we'll go better when there is a sort of crisis moment. Anyone else?
Always me, can't help it. Yeah, so I have, when my littles are fronted, they haven't known what to do because they've only come out a couple of times, and so it's hard because they don't know how to basically drive the car. So what I have had to do is I've put them to bed, in that I basically try and put myself to sleep, and I'll put a blanket over my head and I'll suck my thumb, and I'll try and soothe myself that way, in that I am putting myself to sleep, and then by the time it like calms down enough, someone else will come out, and I'm able to then, all right, we're good. where was my drink? Like, yes. That's all.
Yes, we taught our system the same thing, our littles the same thing. If they're stuck, go to sleep, and someone else will wake up. Yes, good tip. Good one, Laura. Awesome. Garden system, go ahead.
So this happened to us. It wasn't a little, it was an adult that got kind of trapped out, and she doesn't like to come out at all. So she went into kind of a panic mode, and I really appreciate, you know, the Chris is saying that it's an anxiety thing, because I think that's exactly what happened. And she texted our therapist, and they walked us through many different grounding techniques, and just simply by grounding, it was able to really just calm her down. And then she was able to go back inside, and somebody else was able to come out. So I think the grounding tools that we have are really helpful for this.
Yes, I just posted a link to the grounding techniques that we use.
And there's more in the DID. No, the 3 days one. I list all the things you can do to get you back from your dissociation.
Awesome. The 4Ds video has more on grounding as well. Yes, cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Do we have any other questions from the people who are watching this? And in the meantime, does someone wants to share something nice? Go ahead.
I'd like to, it's sort of back to the age sliding question, is that Rhonda had one age slider, and I kind of agree with the Chris's that this little girl was a very young little, and she really wanted to wear some of the costumes. So she grew up in order to wear the costumes. And so it was just a way to do that. But the other thing that Rhonda did was, in her system, was she had babies. That there was like a baby Rhonda, there was a baby Ruby. So there's a person, and then there was a baby version of that same person. And when I was able to meet the babies' versions, it was a trust thing that they were able to let that baby out to be with me. And that was really a wonderful thing. And also you got to see some of the innocence. Ruby was was a protector. So when she let out baby Ruby, wow, that was a really big thing. So there are versions, age versions of the same person.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jim. Yeah, wow. There was a question I see here about how do you work on being co-conscious? I think many different sessions have covered this in the conference on how to like get better communication and create co-consciousness. We have a video with like 11 tips on our own personal channel. I don't know if anyone has like one tip maybe? Like if everyone in the panel could share one tip on how to become co-conscious, that works.
We'd mentioned the mapping presentation earlier, and a lot of what we talk about in the presentation is the benefits of mapping. And definitely one of them is improving co-consciousness and communication, because you're doing a group project that's not in and of itself, hopefully traumatic. That hopefully it's something that everybody can pitch in and do together as a positive community building exercise. Even those that say, no, not me, I don't want to be on the map, that's okay. I'm sorry, it's feeding time. So even those that don't want to be on the map can, still participate and say, but I know about this other person, maybe they're okay with being on the map.
Yes, thank you.
Well, one of the things I did as a supporter is I would send messages from one person to another. You know, I would ask someone and say, could you tell this person this within the system, to try and get them to get used to communicating with each other. And that seemed to help quite a bit.
Thank you for sharing, Jim. Great answer.
Yeah, that's sort of related to what I was going to say. You know, tulpa systems generally have an easier time being co-conscious after the beginning. And what really seems to help is just communicating as much as possible. You know, when you're talking to someone, you obviously both have to be involved in the conversation to some extent. And just, you know, talking, interacting, doing things together of any kind seems to be the best way to encourage that, at least in the tulpa community. And I know there are differences, but I assume that's applicable for everyone. And I know that it's not always as easy to talk for everyone else, but just whatever you can do to interact somehow.
Thank you for sharing.
So I'm going to piggyback on the communication that he was just talking about. The communication is, I think, is essential. We have a journal that we use to try and reach out to everybody. I think journaling is a really great way to get to know everybody, and it gets them talking, and it really improves your communication. And then in our inner world, we have like a meeting place. Ours is the gazebo, and so if anybody needs to talk or communicate, that's where they go, and that's a great way to really get more co-conscious working happening, is just having that place to gather together.
Thank you.
I suppose, yeah, I struggle with this one because I try and like almost like book alters in, like if I've got a big meeting coming up, I'm like, Cleo, right, on the ball, you're coming, like you got to be there, man, because we got to be the serious face on, like, and yet sometimes that does not occur, and we just don't know where they are that day. They just slept in, or like, I don't have the best communication with my system. I'm frustrated. I would like to have that, but at the same time, I also sometimes can't always tell when I've switched. You know, I have been quite destabilized of late, and so, you know, I can have a sentence and then switch, and then another sentence and switch, and I'm not noticing it because it's just happening so fast. So it's just the term that's going around, personality soup. So yes, in some way, I suppose it's me being co-conscious, but it's so not, because it's not, it's intended as much as I would love it to be. It's more like, I'm going to turn up and, oh yeah, this is a cool plan, and I've kind of got a little bit of help there. So that's all I can hope for, you know, really.
It will get better, and I think you're doing a great job on the work that you do. We're all at a different place in our own healing paths, right? So you'll get there.
Thanks, man.
The other question we got is, how interchangeable are the terms dissociation and switching and the related words? I talked a little bit about this in my DID 101 and Healing with 3 C's videos. I explained there that dissociation has 3 meanings, and I refer to a different video by Carolyn Spring, who has a great video. She is from PODS, P-O-D-S, in the UK, which is a great organization there. And she has like 3 explanations of the word dissociation. And one of them indeed is switching. And she refers to that as the behavior of a person with DID when they switch.
I was going to say that they're 2 completely different mechanisms, that switching and dissociation are often conflated. They're tied together when we're amnesiac, and often like younger systems, not to say your body's age, but how long you've been working on becoming co-conscious. So quote unquote younger systems, I don't know what else to call it, beginner systems are, have not separated the two from each other yet. So eventually you can separate your dissociation from your switching and do one without the other.
Thank you.
So I completely recanted everything that Sarah said when she did hers. If you looked at my video, that was the next day. Because yes, I believe also with the Chris's that they are completely separate, that to switch is not a form of dissociation, and even switching is not a very broad term. It means one in, one out kind of thing. Whereas association means, oh my God, all these things, and everyone experiences it in every single crazy different ways. So there's not really one way to say this is the right way to dissociate, but when someone says I'm switching, you know exactly what they're doing, like different person out. So, and the example I gave was the only minor way that it could be was that if you were switching to someone who was dissociated, but it still wasn't that you were dissociated to do that, they were dissociated. So I disagree. That's just an internal communications thing going very badly wrong.
I think what Carolyn Spring meant in her video was that it was an explanation of what people use the word for. So I'm not sure, I don't want to claim here that that is what she thinks, believes, or says. It's what the word dissociation can mean and how people use it. Other people, not necessarily the clinical community.
It's true. And I also agree, maybe with the personality soup, there comes a point that because you are so many people at once that you don't know who you are, that you then become dissociated. So it can be an overwhelming amount of people that can turn into a dissociation. But it's, I think with a simple switch, that's not the case. But yes, don't worry. You're not misquoting her. You know, it's all good.
I like it. This is all on record, right? So I like for things to be clear.
And I'm not saying she's bad, because she's awesome. I've seen some of her stuff. I've shared some of her stuff. Check her out. She's got her own website. Like, yeah.
Yeah, she has awesome.
I with Sarah.
I wanted to add to the overall answer from the panel too. Another way to think of switching is you have brain pattern A, which is person A, and then you have brain pattern B, which is person B. And as you get better and better, you get co-conscious, you're switching from pattern A to pattern B. And usually there's a blend switch as you get more co-conscious rather than a dissociation switch. There is a in between the two, where that's where the blend is, where the brain patterns overlap. As you're, if you're talking strictly from a scientific point of view or what we can observe on an MRI, there's going to be a place where they cross, but the difference isn't that we're losing touch with something. The difference is that we're utilizing a different pattern of our brain. Basically, we're using different sections of our brain. Different neurochemicals are firing, different neurons are working when each person is out. And that's been shown in brain scans. I don't have to prove that one. They've done that.
Yes, they did. They certainly did. So that was an interesting study. Okay, I think these were all the questions. Does anyone from the panel want to say some closing words before we do the goodbye? So this is not the goodbye, it's the I have something to add and tell the world before you stop this thing.
Yeah, if you don't have a support group around you, start one up. Because it's the room and the internet, really, just to start connecting with people. There is nothing more empowering than walking into a room with other people who are going through the same experience that you are. The internet can do so much, but wow, to meet other plurals is just entering a whole other world, and you can't put a price on it. Yeah, and there's not enough support groups around. Let's take over AA. Let's be the number one. We'll have like that many DID support groups. It's gonna be ridiculous. Go to them in the morning, go to them at lunchtime, afternoon session, nighttime. Yeah, we're going to be everywhere. Everyone's going to have their own groups. It'll be amazing. Take over the world. That's my plan.
That's your plan. I talked actually with Jean about this for a little bit. She's an 81-year-old survivor, and she shared that in the 90s there were weekly groups for survivors, and now there's nothing. So, it used to be a thing, but unfortunately it seems not to be anymore at this time. But indeed, start one if you can. And I know Chris also has great information on how to start that, so check that out as well. So I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors, Eclectic Tech LLC, included Liberated Life Coaching, and the monetary sponsor of Keynotes.org, with owner, admin, and adventurer Reverend Chris Itterman, aka the Chris's. Power to the Plurals and Sarah Clark, including Alternation on Facebook and their YouTube channel and website powertotheplurals.com, and support in the memory of Rhonda Bunkelman. I also want to thank all our other speakers, all our guests, all our volunteers, everyone here in the panel who joined us unexpectedly today for this live stream with guests, because we could, so why not? Yay, technology in 2019. Let's hope in 2020 they have a better auto captioning system on YouTube for the next conference. And so the next conference will be May 15, 16, and 17 in 2020. And you can find more information about that soon on our Twitter account, which is plural_events, and our Facebook page, which is Plural Events, one word. And if you want to sign up as a presenter, you can send in your information after June 1st, 2019 at refx.us/present. And now I will say, dear presenters here, please say your goodbyes if you have any to our audience. Card system.
He's trying to make me go first. I don't want to say goodbye.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jim, you're up. Go.
Bye. Oh, I'm up. Oh, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. You've been amazing.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and joining the Plural Positivity World Conference 2019. It's been an amazing success from the bottom of our hearts. We couldn't have done it without you, our viewers, our presenters, our volunteers, and everyone on the Plural Events team. Thank you so much in name of the Plural community. Hi, everyone.